Here's our special guest today. We have Mark McLaughlin. He is a brain surgeon by day.
I need you to give me permission to crack your head open and go move a blood vessel off your brainstem.
He's an author. All right, tell us about Cognitive Dominance, the book that you wrote.
Enhanced situational awareness that facilitates rapid and accurate decision-making under stressful conditions.
What
is your favorite period?
Overtime!
So we started a nonprofit called Trenton Youth Wrestling. What we're doing is we're teaching kids wrestling. We're giving them mentorship. We're giving them, some guidance, spending time with them.
Motherfucker, I'm old, but I'm just getting started. Get drunk, turn up with a party. Oh, but I'm just getting started. Saturday, I might do a house project.
What up? This is No Genre, the podcast. It's your boy, Reese Highlight Humphrey, and I'm kicking it with the kids, CJ Young Bruck.
What is going on, guys? Thank you all for joining us here. We've got a lot of good content coming up. We've got an amazing guest. We want to shout out our sponsors, Upward Spiral Media, for getting us here, getting us going here. Reese, go ahead and tell us what we got on the docket here.
Well, this is No Genre, so it's going to be anything that we think of off the top of the dome, what we think is cool in the moment. It's going to be inspiration, motivation. Might even talk about constipation. Who knows, man?
That's why we got serious, the doctor. Get a little bit delirious. Anything to get your mind a little bit curious.
It's not brain surgery.
It's not brain surgery.
It's not rocket appliances. Hey, we're out here.
Here's our special guest today. We have Mark McLaughlin with us. He is a brain surgeon by day. He's an author. He's a wrestling enthusiast and philanthropist. How you doing, Mark?
I'm doing awesome. Great to be here.
We've been looking to get Mark on the podcast, have some interesting conversations for quite some time now. It's been
like I told you, man, I have more questions for you guys, man. I was listening to the new release, and man, I got some questions. I'm
ready. You got some
I'm
questions? Okay.
Locked and loaded.
All right, well, first let's get into brain surgery. Give me your day-to-day. What goes on, man?
Yeah, what's that like?
Because we really only know you as a wrestling coach. We have no clue what you do as your day job. Give me the daily routine.
It's awesome. I mean, I'm totally living my dream. I wanted to be a doctor since I was 5 years old. My grandfather was a surgeon, and he used to take me on house calls. You guys probably don't remember. You're too young, but doctors used to carry black bags with them, man. And I used to carry my grandfather's black bag.
You follow him around like while he's doing rounds?
Yeah, and he would do house calls on patients back then. So I would go to the hospital with him, and I kind of grew up around the hospital. So, when I had the opportunity to go to medical school and become a doctor, it was just a dream come true. Now, a lot of people kind of think they want to be a doctor, but when they get there, they're like not happy, or they're like they know it's not for them. I was just so happy because I like, wow, I really love this. I'm good at it. It requires a lot of communication skills and obviously some technical skills, but I love it. And I chose neurosurgery because it was like the wrestling of medicine. I mean,
the hardest path possible.
It was intense. It was personal. And, it just was really challenging physically and mentally. And so I just fell in love with it.
It's amazing.
Making it, Mark, was there ever a point where you were like, all right, this is not for me? Was there ever a breaking point for you, or a bump in the road per se?
Boy, I had that actually after I finished a couple times. I mean, that was kind of one of the impetuses for my book is I had a couple of experiences early on in my career, one taking care of this young boy who I write about, who, I did everything right, and he just didn't do that well. And it was one of those things where for a while after the surgery, I second-guessed myself, thinking I could have done something differently, or I could have picked up something earlier. And that kind of was a circular drain for me for a while. And there were a couple times around that time early on where I was like, man, what the heck did I get myself into? But fortunately, over time, I kind of pivoted and found some other areas that were really, really rewarding for me. And then later on, when I wrote the book and I was able to kind of see the whole experience, I ended up I thought this young boy, after I had worked on him, I thought that he had passed away. But actually, I found out later in my career that he was still alive. And I went back to see the parents, and and I told them, I said, I always wanted to bring you back your boy, like the way he was before. And unfortunately, with all the complications, he was never going to be the same. But I always felt like I let you down. And the parents were just like, they were so beautiful. They just gave me this massive hug, and they were like, "What, are you kidding me? You saved our boy. He's still with us. Our family's intact."
Yeah.
You know, and I realized on that day, like, oh my God, like, what an incredible gift.
Yeah, what a weight lifted off the shoulder for so long. No, like thinking that was something that probably motivated you on a daily basis, and then to find out that it did come full circle.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those things where we all tell ourselves stories, right? Yeah. And those stories are not always the right perspective. And so that's why it's important to like kind of share these things with other people, because when I saw it and I shared it with my editor, he turned it all around, and in one day I went from like being one of the worst patients of my life to one of the best patients of my life.
Yeah, what a flip.
Wow.
So it's exciting, it's frustrating, it has to be stressful.
It is. Day to day, it's pretty hectic. I see probably 60 patients a week. I see about 30 on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and I do 5 to 6 surgeries a week on Mondays and Thursdays. And
say that again. Go through that again.
That's okay.
I do about 6 operations a week and see 60 patients in the office. And then Fridays, is my kind of sharpening the saw day. So I usually don't work on Fridays. I study different things, and I read, and I get better. But it is. There are times when you get hammered with very stressful events. But what I always turn back to is like, I'm built for this. I'm made for this. Like, I'm a servant. I finally realized that after many years. I'm a servant, and this is what is needed of me today, and this is what I got to deliver. So when I fall back on my purpose, the stress goes away. I mean, stress is like anxiety. It's like a thinking about something in the future, really. It's not really in the present. If you just immerse yourself in the present moment, focus on what you can do next to serve the patient that you have, the fear leaves you.
All this stuff you're saying, it sounds like wrestling.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
But the next best thing, you get a bad call, you lose a position, what's the next best thing you can do? And to have a quick memory in those senses, it's interesting. It sounds so much like wrestling. So how much do you live your life at your job based on the wrestling?
Wrestling gave me a ton of tools to work with. I mean, particularly just focus, like concentration, because I'll sit working on, trying to shave bone spurs off of a nerve, for 2-3 hours, just taking a bite after bite after bite of, shaving little bone spurs that are sticking into the nerve. And the focus and the concentration was, I think, the greatest gift wrestling gave me. Obviously, like, it developed my endurance, my stamina, and just those are probably the 2 greatest gifts. I will say one thing that I learned from wrestling, and it's really important for wrestlers to know, and I try and teach this to as many, wrestlers as I can, is wrestling has great skills in teaching you, on the mat, how to impose your will to somebody, impose your will on somebody, right? And that's a great skill, like to impose your will onto other jobs and things that you need to do. But it does not work in relationships. It does not work in marriages. Yeah. It does not work in friendships.
Impose your will.
You cannot impose your will.
Yeah, you can't put your wife. You can't put your wife in a headlock.
Exactly. It just doesn't work. Yeah. And so you got to remember, like, that know when your wrestling attitude is going to help you, and know when it's going to get yourself in trouble. So that's something I learned along the way. Perseverance, resiliency, stamina.
Yeah, there's a lot of that in wrestling too. Being calm. And being able to know when to sprint and impose your will, but also know when to hold off and chill. I base so much of my life around wrestling, so it's really interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, we were talking about this a little bit the other day. First impressions. How important is eye contact? How much is too much eye contact? How important is the first handshake? You were saying something about the first 15 seconds that you meet somebody. You'd have to spend the next hour trying to fix that or ruin that.
I love talking about this stuff.
Okay.
So so neurosurgery is the ultimate sales job. I mean, I've got to look somebody in the eye and say, I need you to give me permission to crack your head open and go move a blood vessel off your brainstem, right? And you've got to make a connection with somebody so that they trust you and they believe that you're doing what's in their best interest. So I had the privilege to work with some communications experts over my years. I brought them into my office. It's a company called Workability, and they do a great job. And one of the teachers, one of the workshops, kind of taught me that if you don't make that connection, the really authentic connection, in the first 15 seconds of meeting somebody, you spend the rest of the time trying to make that up, trying to work it back to gain their trust. So,
are there some tactics that they teach you? It's a course, right? It's a whole day. They come out and you spend how many hours?
It's a work, a 10-hour workshop.
10 hours talking about the first 15 seconds.
Exactly.
What do they tell you? Share the secrets.
Well, I mean, it's coming to communion with somebody. Okay,
Yeah.
if you are trying to make that connection, the way you walk, it affects the way you walk up to them affects how they're going to perceive you. You're going to walk up like a wrestler, boom, 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 boom.
Or shake his hand way too hard.
Too hard.
Or go limp.
Exactly.
The limp one.
The limp
Don't
fish.
give me the limp one.
I don't want that. You can keep it.
Nice to meet you, buddy.
Yeah,
During those short seconds, is this person thinking about, hey, I'm level with this person, I'm equal with this person, or are they thinking like, oh, they're distracted by, oh, this guy walked up really confidently, or this guy walked up, or he gave me a cold fish, or handshake, whatever it is. Those moments are really, really important. And so, I mean, I apply that in my medical practice all the time. That when I walk in, it's so easy to look at a computer or so easy to look away, but really to look somebody in the eye and keep that connection for a few moments. And it doesn't take long. The handshake, the posture, the way you sit down. I mean, seriously, think of sometimes
kind of show them that you care.
Slumping.
Show them that you care. Try and impress them.
Try and impress them.
Get
Don't
them to
intimidate
trust
them.
Yeah.
It reminds me of, so when I was looking for my first job, I was applying for Stryker, medical device company, and they ran me through what they call the Gallup. It's like a personality test. And there were a bunch of questions that they were asking, and they were off the wall. Some of them, it was like, are you a hard shell taco or a soft shell taco? Or like, are you an intimidating person? Like,
Just trying to see how you react.
Yep. And I would answer, I'd be like, well, I'm pretty hard shell taco. I mean, I prefer soft shell if we're talking about what I'm eating for lunch. And then the other one was, are you an intimidating person? And my answer is, you can't elaborate on it. It's yes or no. My answer is yes, because maybe when I walk in the room, I'm intimidating somebody. It's not my intention, but if you have a presence in the room, it might be intimidating to some people. But with a handshake, with eye contact, with the tone of your voice, you can kind of let them feel a little bit more comfortable.
Ease them in.
Yeah,
Right.
Because that is elaborating on a presence that would be just objective, And now you have that opportunity. So, but how important is a handshake?
Yeah. So CJ's got a handshake for you. What do you got? You
Give
guys,
it to me.
let's see what
Give
you
it to
got,
me.
CJ.
Give it to me.
Oh,
Sorry, I lost my thumb in the war. 9 out of 10.
What do you know about CJ now?
He's a comic.
I'm a patriot.
He's a comic. He's a comic.
Okay, Nate or Reese, what do you got for him?
I got to do one?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Here you go. Oh, yeah. Sorry. I'm a Ninja Turtle. I just met up with Master Splinter a little bit ago, and
get pizza. He's down in the gutter.
told me some really important stuff. So good eye contact. How much is too much eye contact though? Because
you'll catch somebody on the back of their heels,
and that's distracting too. When you're just really staring into my soul.
I don't know if you can you have too much eye contact?
I think so.
Oh yeah, dude.
I think so.
Really?
Patty, my mom, scares people away with her eye contact sometimes, just looking you right in the soul within the first 5 minutes, right? And then she'll ask you some deep questions that are just like, all right, I didn't know we were getting into this right away. We've been friends since high school.
Well, everybody walks around with a pretense. Everybody's wearing a mask, right? And that mask is, what they think you should be thinking about them. And I think, looking somebody in the eye and keeping that connection probably does scare them. And people are afraid to show their true self. But I think if you get them to do that, your connection is much richer, and you're going to be much, much more capable of enrolling them in what you want to enroll them with. So, I mean, that's the second part of sales is like, after you make that connection, you have to, you present your product, but then you need to find out, do you want that product, right? I mean, so you got to ask those questions. And I think asking questions, like really good questions, is like the next step in making a connection.
Asking really good questions. In those meetings, do you have those questions prepared before you go in?
They're really open-ended. Like, what do you mean by whatever word you use? Words are so important, and we think that we understand what somebody says, and it's really shocking how we misinterpret what people say so many times. And so by clarifying what people say, by asking what do you mean by that, or what do you think and feel about whatever, those kinds of questions get people to open up. And when people open up and are vulnerable, that's when you can be vulnerable, and that's when you can make that connection.
Okay. All right. Tell us about Cognitive Dominance, the book that you wrote. Enhanced situational awareness that facilitates rapid and accurate decision-making under stressful conditions with limited decision-making time. It's kind of like what we're talking about, right?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Go into explaining about, one, why you decided to write a book, and two, what this book is really trying to accomplish.
I've always been interested in like performance enhancement. I was lucky in high school. I had a guy who was a sports psychologist, and he turned out to be one of the major gurus in sports psychology, a guy named Dr. Nate Zinzer. And Dr. Zinzer created the Center for Enhanced Performance at West Point, and he basically built, a world-class sports performance center out of the military academy. And so he was my coach when I was a high school athlete. So I was always interested in that, and not only in wrestling, but when I turned to medicine and surgery, it's a performance. It's a performance-based activity. When I go to the hospital, I go to a locker room, I put on a uniform, I walk into a hallowed ground. I have to perform. I have an opponent. That's the disease that I need to go after. So the similarities are very, very close. And so with Doc Z, I invited him to the University of Pittsburgh to speak about performance in the OR, and then he invited me back to West Point to talk about performance in the operating room. So we went back and forth for years, and I was teaching the cadets in this sports psychology class. And what I would do is I'd bring them stories about my surgical career and, things that I struggled with, great successes. And I had this whole body of stories. And then one day, one of the cadets actually said, your story sounds like cognitive dominance. I was like, what is that? I never heard of it before. And that's when, they gave the definition: enhanced situational awareness that facilitates rapid and accurate decision-making under stressful conditions and time.
Boom.
So shout out that cadet for the title.
I know. And then I was like, oh my God, wow, how do I get more of that?
Yeah.
I want that, And so that became the title of it. And along the way, I found a great editor, actually through the Center for Enhanced Performance, and he sort of stitched the stories together for me. He kind of figured out a way to put a thread through them, and that's how the whole book came about. But I got to tell you, the book took me 4 years to write. It cost me so much time, but it was so worth it for me. Like, it totally transformed me. It eliminated like any type of dissatisfaction I had with medicine and with life. Because I realized like I had the tools to figure out any obstacle that came across my way. And by telling those stories and by coming up with like a life theory about it, it was the best thing I'd ever done.
So it was like a culmination of like self-therapy and
That's what I was thinking.
reflection. It was like your expression and talking it through, all of these thoughts that you had, any type of speech that you had given, and being able to put that down on paper for you. It was a process, as much of a process for you in self-advancement, really, than anything. And now you're able to share that with the world, too.
Yeah, it reminds me of us making music.
That's, yeah,
But
that was the
so what I
segue.
was going to ask is, with music, sometimes it's like writer's block. It's really hard to get there, and creativity comes in waves. So, and then I'll write the whole song. Was it like that with the book? Did you write a bunch of it and get to 90% done, and then finalizing it was very difficult?
A little bit of both. Like I was very regimented. I would write from about 4:30 to like 6 o'clock every morning during the weekdays, and then like all weekend I would write. And some, like you said, some days it really pours out, and some days you're sort of stuck with, how do I link this and this together? But it was more of a steady process for me, and I don't remember ever like having writer's block. I remember struggling with trying to merge a concept. But man, it was such a great experience. And then just to leave it to my kids and say, look, if I die tomorrow, like this is what I have to say, and that's part of like the greatest satisfaction in life comes from self-expression.
Yeah.
You guys are expressing yourselves in this music.
Yeah.
It's an incredible feeling when you actually say exactly what you want to say.
Yeah.
And it comes
the way
together.
you want to say it.
Uh-huh.
And, and it's a little bit like walking out naked, right in front of everybody. Like, this is me. And you like
And
it, you don't like it.
sharing it with the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, not easy.
Launching it.
Scary.
It's
Scary.
very
Yeah, you're making yourself vulnerable. You're pulling back the veil a little bit. you know, but it's something like when I write it and it makes me feel something, and I feel like I'm communicating what I want to make other people feel what I'm trying to accomplish out of the whole process. It's a really cool feeling. Some people journal, some people draw. Music is the expression for me. Music is my journaling. It's my mark for now of how I kind of make any type of impact. You know?
So now in your music, I want to ask you guys some questions. So in your music, are you guys like 50-50 on the writing, or is it like who writes more, and are they?
It depends on the song.
Yeah.
So we kind of make the hooks and the chorus together. We kind of freestyle them down here. And
the beats are off
in this
YouTube.
world right here.
Yeah, in this world, put the
And
headphones
then
on.
whoever writes the verse, that's their verse. And then we'll kind of help each other through it. But sometimes CJ will be on the hook and I'll be one verse. Other song, I'll be on more of the song. So it's 50-50 overall, but each song is different.
All right.
Yeah.
What is the juice about?
What is the juice of it?
What is it about?
What is the
Spin
juice
on
about?
body get loose.
Nah,
Nah,
nah.
nah.
Keep it coming and
Finding
finding
the
the
moves. Nah, nah.
I was trying to look for the lyrics on Google. It doesn't. They're not up yet.
He got the juice. I got the sauce.
Yeah, it's really just about. It's really just about. I don't know, when you're going out. I picture myself going out with the group, you know, and we're having some drinks, and you're feeling loose, and then that's just what contributes to the vibe. Really, is that everybody's energy is kind of contributing to a night that I don't know.
Yeah, and
ultimately
the
ends to
juice,
party.
it can be drinking, but if you got juice, you got sauce. It's kind of like the way that you present yourself. You got swag. I got
Yeah.
the juice. He got
Yeah.
the sauce.
Right.
You can tell by the way that I walk, by the way that I talk.
Because Julie was like, "Is that about steroids? Is it about steroids?"
No.
Nope.
Well, I wanted to surprise you guys today. I am going to put my next surgical video to music, and it's going to be the juice.
The juice.
Juice background,
Yeah.
and I'm going to narrate the surgery, the microvascular decompression.
Yes.
The video I sent
Yes,
you.
let's do it. And so we appreciate you a lot.
Yeah.
Because you've been one of the people that really hyped us up when we're doing our music. And there's not a lot in the beginning stages, like only really good friends. And so you inspired us to keep going because it's not easy once you put it out there, and it's the beginning stages of music. So it's not as good as what people hear on the radio.
Right.
But you understand the expression, the therapy, and people like you motivate us to keep doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But one of my favorite things is you would play like whiskey out the wine glass while you're operating. I can only imagine what the nurses
This here is
and
a
everybody's
story.
like, what is he listening to?
Riding down a dirt road.
And every once in a while, like there'll be like some like we'll have there's this gel that we use to like stop bleeding, and they'll go, "Do you need another one?" And I'll look at it and I go, "Might be all we got." And they don't get it, but I do.
But I do.
It's hilarious to me. Might be all we got.
Well, all
Well,
right.
shit.
It's really fun, man. It's fun. I'm sitting in the operating room with Matt Klosik listening to your guys' music. I'm sitting there like, what? How could this ever happen in the world? Like you couldn't script it.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't script.
Oh, and Colo,
you know?
Colo loves it too. I'll catch him like singing the tunes because we'll do. When I have the home studio, Colo will come over and play the keys to what we're doing. He'll get involved. He's really good, really talented on the piano, and he enjoys it. Yeah.
It's such a small world. Like you guys are still really young. Like it's such a small world. The connections are amazing. I trained in Pittsburgh, but then I did a fellowship in Atlanta with a guy named Reg Hade, and when my son Patrick and Alex wrestled at Lawrenceville, when my son Patrick was wrestling, we were up at Blair one day, and he was wrestling Matt Klosik, and I had never met Matt Klosik, and I was on the phone with my mentor Reg Hade, and I'm like, Reg, so I'm up at Blair. Patrick's got to wrestle this really tough kid, and he's like, who is it? I'm like, Matt Klosik. He goes, Matt Klosik. Where's he from? I'm like, Ohio. He goes, his father was my roommate at Notre Dame. I was like, what? Like, you're kidding me? Like,
It is.
can't
It
make
is
these
such a
connections
small
like
world.
that.
And so Matt Klodzik, just for anyone who doesn't know, is a 4-time All-American at Princeton, and now he's one of my athletes, and he also shadows you. So very small world.
yeah,
Yeah. And also, when we very first started doing music, Colo, it's his mic. It's his interface.
Oh, it's all his setup.
It's
yeah.
all his stuff.
Yeah.
So he was always the technical guy. We'd be like, Colo, we're stuck. And he'd
Colo.
come in and he'd fix it. And do
Yeah.
his Princeton stuff, super smart with all that. And then we'd be idiots and do
Yeah,
music.
Colo, we can't hear the mic. My mic's not working. Colo.
Colo, get in here.
You go in there, switch one thing around, bada bing, bada boom.
Okay, so getting into coaching youth wrestling. You
Oh, yeah.
have 6 surgeries a day, 4 days a week, so many hours. You write your book from 4 a.m. And then after work, you got to be pretty exhausted mentally, physically. You go put a lot of time and money into coaching youth wrestling, which is not an easy job.
No.
How do you find that energy? Does that give you energy? Why wrestling?
The answer is no, I'm not exhausted. I'm totally fired up because I totally love what I do. I mean, I love what I do in medicine and I love what I do in coaching. And if you're really doing what you truly know what you're supposed to be doing on earth, you don't get tired.
It doesn't feel like work.
You get energized. And so I love coming to the wrestling room and hanging out with you guys. And I love seeing the kids. And the wrestling room to me is like a fear laboratory. You know, it's like you're training kids, like, think about what, how do you prepare for an event that may induce some fear, and how do you mitigate against that? So I just love it. I mean, I love the camaraderie and there's like magic in the room.
Yeah, we can tell you love it. You bring the energy. Give us the
Oh my God!
Give us the breakdown.
Your favorite.
Give us the breakdown. Yep. Go ahead. How do you break it down?
Who owns the third period? What are we on our feet?
The third period.
Who holds you down?
No
What
one.
is your favorite period?
Overtime.
Overtime, baby. Yo, I walk into the room. This was the first time I had ever seen you in the room, and I hadn't seen you working with PwC. But I come in, and you are at a different level of
Full
energy.
sweat.
Oh, full sweat. It's the end, so I'm catching the end of you and your whole spiel. And I go over to Reese. I'm like, "Yo, who do we have running practice today?" And he said, "That's Mark McLaughlin, blah, blah, blah." And you told me you have a long history of running these practices or whatever. He's like, "Oh, yeah, and he's a brain surgeon, too."
Yeah.
And then he was like, "Yeah, he's got his own book out." I'm like, "Okay, this got to be one of the top 5 humans in the world."
I got to meet this dude.
Yeah, all right, let me go shake this
I got to
man's
shake his hand
again,
and look at his eyes.
Again, yeah, and actually make eye contact, make sure I do it right. Yeah, it was amazing. You do have a different energy, and that's kind of my style as a coach, too.
Right,
so
right.
I resonate with that, and I love it. And I think that the kids kind of, I don't know, that having that type of practice for a kid that early in wrestling is I don't know, it kind of sets it apart.
It makes them want to keep coming back.
Their path is different than somebody that's going to a regular practice. The coach is kind of just showing moves. This is something that I don't know, truly is exciting.
It makes practice exciting.
Yeah, that's why I believe in whatever you're trying to do with I mean, it would be Trenton Youth Wrestling, right? That is the goal.
Yes,
It's going
definitely.
to succeed. Hands down, it's going to
Yeah, tell us
make
about
itself happen.
Tell us about this project with Trenton Youth Wrestling.
Sure.
What are you doing for them? It's amazing. I just want to hear you say it.
Well, so I coached the Princeton Youth Wrestling program for about 20 years now, 23 years.
Back when it was pause.
Yeah, back in the early days, and built it up and kind of learned a lot back then. That was when my boys were wrestling and had a lot of great parental involvement, and we grew it to a really cool level. And then Chris came, and the whole new Princeton University team came, and then their kids started coming, and the momentum just continued to build. So I feel like I have a really unique skill set of like knowing what it takes to build a youth program. And along the way, when we started in Princeton, the Bethea family, a Trenton family, there were no opportunities for youth wrestling back then in Trenton. So they came to Princeton, and they had 4 really great kids, family of 9, but 4, I got to coach 4 of them. They were wonderful wrestlers, wonderful kids, and the parents.
You're still working with Ray there, right?
Exactly.
And May was an graduate assistant at TC&J. I love the Bethea.
Small world.
I love those guys,
Small world.
Of course.
And so they, they were on our team, and they experienced, the product that we as it collectively have created at Princeton Wrestling Club. And when my kids finished, everybody was like, "What are you going to do?" I'm like, "Well, I'm not leaving this. I love this. I'm still going to be here, but I think we should pivot and bring a program to Trenton, bring the same thing to Trenton." So we started a nonprofit called Trenton Youth Wrestling. And I did brought it together with the Bethea family, and Kane and Bethea and I started it, and then we've grown it. So we have 6 programs in the Trenton school districts, 3 middle school programs and 3 elementary school programs. Our goal is to put it in every one of the schools. And what we're doing is we're teaching kids wrestling. We're giving them mentorship. We're giving them some guidance, spending time with them, giving them a snack. But our vision, because I brought Ray on, so that's the coolest thing in the world. Ray, who I coached as a young boy, is now our director of operations and is running it. Our vision is that we're going to have a facility, a world-class facility in the city of Trenton where kids can go, 6-7 days a week and get a workout, and get a meal, have a tutor, and have a classroom, and have good Wi-Fi access, and have a sanctuary to learn wrestling and to become a scholar athlete. So that's our vision, and that's what we're working towards.
How long have you been working on that, and how close are we to that happening?
So we've been doing this for 6 years now, and just had a meeting yesterday or Friday with the mayor. We're working on finding a site, and I think in the next year we're going to have a brick and mortar facility. We'll always be in the schools. We're going to continue to stay in the schools. We're going to teach wrestling in the schools, but wrestling's just the carrot. It's all the lessons that wrestling teaches, the responsibility, the fact that you can be the architect of your own life. That's the greatest lesson. And so I think in the next year, we're going to have a brick and mortar facility, and we're going to have it staffed with people who are there, and kids want to go get a workout, and then get a workout and get a meal. And
that'd be staffed with coaches, you mean? Or
exactly.
Okay.
With coaches and teachers, and we're going to have a Rolodex of mentors, people who volunteer to do this.
It's amazing.
Kind of
So people that would want to get involved, you would say to anybody listening, would say reach out to you.
Absolutely, me or Ray. We have our website's TrentonYouthWrestling.com. We're pivoting to become Trenton Youth Wrestling and Learning Center. That will be soon, and we're going to continue to bring the educational component to it. But the thing about again, talking with young kids, like I think it's really important when you're coaching young kids, and you guys do such an amazing job too. Is I used to talk to them like as a senior, and they would be like a junior. But now I'm realizing, talk to them as equals. Talk to them eye to eye. Talk to them as a the same person you are, and the connection is so much more powerful. Early on with the pause thing, I came in right after a really difficult operation, and I was talking to the kids, and I said, "Look, I want to tell you the story. We got in." I was doing this operation today. I was taking this tumor off this person's spine, their upper spinal cord. And as I came down on it, it was really, really stuck to the spinal cord, and it was really bloody. And for a minute, I thought, oh my gosh, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can take this thing off. And then all the other things that go through your mind, you should have never done this. That was a bad idea to operate on this person. What did you think we were doing? And all this little conversation went on in my head. And I was telling the kids, like, I heard these voices in my head. And then, what did I say? I said, okay, get around it, shrink it, remove it. Get around it, shrink it, remove it. Get around it, shrink it, remove it. Same thing, break down into little small mantras what you need to do. And I started doing that. And I got a plane between the tumor and the spinal cord, and I got the tumor off, and I got it out, and I cured this person. And, what I said to these kids is, I said, you're going to hear that voice. You can't do this. You're going to hear this voice. Like, you're not capable of this. Don't listen to it. Mm-mm. It comes to you. Mm-hmm. Don't listen to it. It's just fear.
Yeah, because you can just start to go down that dark path. And obviously, I relate it to wrestling. When you're really tired, it's the third period, and the dude's really coming at you. I just solve these little puzzles. What's my right hand supposed to do? Clear this tie. Underhook here. Instead of thinking, wow, there's 2 minutes and 12 seconds left. Let's try and hold our ground. It gets so stressful and anxious when you do that. When you break it down, just keep solving a puzzle. Right. The tired kind of goes away.
Yep. Yeah. Control the tie. Stay in your stance. Yep. This is the basic stuff.
The little things, yeah. Any mountain of task, adversity, whatever it is, may seem like a mountain until you just look at what's next is the next
break it
step.
down.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's really all you need to do in order to get closer.
And then after sharing it with those kids, you got to ask them, like, have you ever had this experience? Share with me something that you felt like this.
And bring them into the conversation.
Yeah, and then, oh man, then the magic happens. Like then you got a kid telling you a story. Like, I was gonna go down this sledding hill and I got really scared at the top, and and then they tell the whole story, and you're just like, man.
I love putting kids on their heels like that when I'll come and run a camp, right? You usually, you step up, you introduce yourself, you give your credentials, like, why am I here coaching you guys? But then I'll flip it on them. I'll be like, all right, so what's your name? What have you done? And they'll be like, all right.
Me?
All right, cool. All right, I'll talk to you. I'm a state placer. I'm trying to be a state champ next year, blah, 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 this and that. Or if after an event, after a camp, signing autographs, I'll be like, can I sign your shoe?
Yeah.
Flip it on them. Yeah. I love that.
Well, you signed mine.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny, man.
Yeah. You never know what you learn. You learn a lot from these kids. We talked about this the other day. What's the definition of humility, right? Knowing when to be the teacher and knowing when to be the student.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is another good one too. I don't know. There's always a balance, like in terms of leading individuals, influencing individuals. The balance between fear and love, and which one's more powerful. I think there is. I don't know. There's always is there a perfect combination of the two? I think you need a little bit of both. Like I reflect on, my time as an athlete under Tom Borelli. There were definitely times where I feared him, and that's what motivated me to do what I needed to do and to believe in what he was saying. But when I look back on it, I love him, and I would do anything to follow him anywhere, right? I mean, you can't really have one. You can't rely on just one and have that same influence. You need both,
I want to challenge you guys on that one.
Okay.
I love the concept. I love it. I think they're the opposites of each other. I think fear prevents you from loving, and you can't force yourself to love. The only thing you can do is dismantle fear. The more you dismantle fear, the more you can love. So, example, I was getting ready to do an operation on a gentleman a couple years ago, and he had a very deep tumor in the back of his head, right near this very large vein called the torcula. And the torcula carries about, a liter of blood every minute.
Oh, yeah. I'm very familiar with the torcula.
Good.
I caught a torcula the other day.
How big was it? PR?
It's about this big. It's a nice sized torcula.
It's a good, nice sized torcula.
So this guy had a tumor about the size of a golf ball right next to this large tangle of veins. And I had done the surgery before, but I hadn't done it any time recently because we had a new tumor guy in our practice, and I was sending all the tumors to him, but he was away, and so I had to do the tumor. And it was supposed to be done at 11 o'clock in the morning, but it got pushed to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, which is not a great time to be starting a complex case because there's a shift change. And so the person that sets up the OR for you to get ready is not the person that's in the OR when you're actually operating. Now, they're still qualified and competent. If you have to do it, you can, but it's
not
more
the same
difficult.
team. Yeah.
And this was at the end of a week, and I was totally exhausted. And I was trying to get myself psyched up. And I'm in my car getting ready to go into the hospital. I get a phone call. And the phone call is from my father's doctor. And the doctor says, your dad has leukemia, and he has got a really bad prognosis. He's not going to make it for a month or two, a couple months max. And I was like, oh, shit, how am I going to do this surgery now? I'm like, I got to go see my dad right now. And I was like, really, really torn. What am I going to do? So I sort of, in my mind, thought, I'm going to cancel this. I'm just going to go in and cancel it. I'm not in a good state of mind to do the surgery. I'll be distracted. It's not going to go well. It's a difficult case. I haven't done one in a while. It's late in the afternoon. You're tired at the end of the week. Maybe you got to pay attention to that, So I decided I was going to go in and talk to the patient and cancel. So I walked in the hospital, and I'm walking down the hallway, and I see all the way down the end of the hallway, I see this patient, and he's got his wife there, and he's got his 3 daughters at the bedside. And I'm walking, and as I'm walking, I'm thinking, man, how am I going to say this? How am I going to do this? And just sort of as I got to the door, I thought about my father, and, a poem that he gave me a long time ago came to my mind, the Rudyard Kipling's poem, If. And it was, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those 2 imposters just the same. That verse came to me. And something switched in my mind. And I just said, you know what? I'm not going to cancel this surgery. I'm going to freaking dedicate this surgery.
I'm going to crush this.
Yeah. Oh my
I'm going to dedicate this. And this isn't going to be a problem. This is going to be the finest hour of my life and career. And I knew that there was nothing I could do for my dad at that moment, but I could do something for this man and his family. And so I took him to the operating room, and his surgery went great. I mean, it went great. And I finished it. I waited till he woke up. We always, after you operate on somebody, you wait until they get out of anesthesia. There's always that stress of waiting for them to wake up, because sometimes they don't wake up, and you have to take him back to the operating room because there's a blood clot or something. So I waited for him to wake up. He woke up, and then, and then I scooted out and went to go see my dad. And I was talking to my my coach about this, and I said, oh, it's the poetry. The poetry inspired me, and he said, no, it didn't. I said, yeah, it did. He goes, I hate poetry. Poetry's not inspiring. I'm like, he goes, I'll give you a different scenario. He goes, I don't think the poetry inspired you. I think you read the poetry, and the poetry reminded you how much you love your father, and how much you love your patient, and how much you love what you do. And by diminishing the fear that you had of what could have happened if you didn't get this thing right, you turned to love. And when you turned to love, you gave it the best performance you could possibly give.
Wow.
Fear interferes with your performance, any level of it. I used to think just like you guys, you got to have a little bit. It gets your nerves up. It gets you. I think it inhibits your performance at the highest levels. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's a good model to have in the beginning, but in the highest level of performance, I think that any level of anxiety is a low level fear. I think it impedes your performance. And if you just turn to, I was made for this. This is exactly where I'm supposed to be. This is exactly what I want to do. I love this. Mm-hmm. You're going to be at your best.
Amazing.
That's an amazing story right there.
Full circle too. You tied it all in, dude.
Yeah.
It was amazing. Well, Mark, I think we're out of time here. Thank you so much, man. You're inspiring. You inspire us every single day, hyping us up on the music, doing what you do. We appreciate you in the wrestling world and what you do for people and changing their lives and keeping people around with the brain surgery. Man, thank you so much for coming on. If you want to follow Mark, you can follow him at, give me your Instagram, McLaughlin.
Mark McLaughlin. I think it's M McLaughlin MD.
And you got a segment where it's where they follow you, Walks with McLaughlin.
Yeah. Oh yeah, my YouTube channel is Mark McLaughlin MD, and that's a day in the life. There's another round of videos coming out, day in the life soon.
Nice. I love that.
Don't forget, the Juice video is coming out.
The Juice is coming soon. Plug the Trenton website one more time.
TrentonYouthWrestling.org. We are building a sanctuary in Trenton for kids to come get a workout, get a meal, have a mentor, have a place where they belong, and help us, join us. This is not a charity. It's a movement.
Let's go. Love. All right. And if you like the podcast, give us a thumbs up. YouTube.com/highlighthumphrey, or you can follow us on Instagram at no genre.
No underscore
genre.
Asterisk.
Something like that. You'll find us.
Okay. We ain't hard to find.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.
Thanks for having me, man.
Is there a right way to do wrestling or anything to be successful? That's the only job I would leave New Jersey for. Head Olympic coach of women's beach wrestling. What leg should you lead? How important is confidence on the mat and in your everyday life? Because I'm 2-0. Yes, sir. Just yell at me. Vincenzo Joseph, everybody.
Passion, drip, drip, drop. There goes an orgasm. Like you coming out the side of your face. You tapping right into your memory bank.